The command bridge of the United Earth vessel Pioneer hummed with a low, anxious energy as it orbited the azure globe of Viridia Prime. Captain Marcus Reed stood at the forward viewing port, his gaze fixed on the swirling cloud patterns below, deep in thought about the historic moment at hand. "Captain, the Viridian delegation is hailing us," Lieutenant Harper announced from her station. "Put them through, Lieutenant," Reed replied, turning from the port to face the main screen. The view shifted to reveal a Viridian, tall and slender with shimmering blue skin. Its eyes, large and luminescent, regarded them with a cool, detached curiosity. "I am Counselor Tessara of the Viridian High Command. Welcome, humans, to Viridia Prime. We trust your journey was uneventful?" Reed stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "Thank you, Counselor Tessara. I am Captain Marcus Reed. We appreciate your government's willingness to engage with us. Indeed, our journey here has been smooth, thanks to the coordinates you provided." Tessara nodded slightly. "It is our hope that this meeting will clarify the intentions of your species and establish grounds for possible cooperation between our peoples. Shall we proceed with the discussions?" "That's what we're here for," Reed confirmed, signaling his crew to prepare for the landing sequence. "We'll be ready to meet in person within the hour." The screen flickered off, and Reed turned to his crew, his expression firm yet optimistic. "This is it, everyone. Stay sharp, stay respectful, but remember, we're not here to yield at every corner. We have our directives." As the Pioneer descended towards the designated landing area, the ship's atmosphere was a blend of solemnity and suppressed excitement. Upon touchdown, the crew gathered at the airlock, donning their ceremonial uniforms. The airlock doors hissed open, revealing a platform surrounded by the lush, verdant landscapes of Viridia Prime. A delegation of Viridians awaited them, their expressions unreadable. Reed stepped out first, his boots clicking on the metallic ramp. Counselor Tessara approached, her hand extended in a gesture of greeting. Reed accepted, mindful of the countless simulations they had practiced for this moment. "Captain Reed, welcome to our world," Tessara said, her voice echoing slightly in the open air. "This way, please. Our council is eager to discuss the potentials of our shared future." As they walked towards the towering structure that housed the Viridian Council, Reed glanced back at his team, giving a subtle nod. The path they walked was lined with bioluminescent plants that cast an ethereal glow on the procession, painting the meeting in a light of otherworldly significance. Inside the council chamber, Reed took a seat across from several high-ranking Viridians. The chamber was a vast, circular room with walls that seemed to pulse with a gentle, living light. "Let us begin," Tessara announced as everyone settled. "Earth has been a subject of great interest to us. Your rapid advancements and expansion into the cosmos have not gone unnoticed." Reed leaned forward, placing his elbows on the sleek table. "We come with a spirit of cooperation, Counselor. Earth, too, has much to gain from a partnership. But more importantly, we have much to offer one another." A murmur ran through the Viridian side of the table. A tall, thin Viridian with darker skin spoke up. "And what exactly do you propose, Captain Reed?" Reed smiled, his confidence unshaken. "Technology exchange, resource sharing, strategic alliances, potential benefits are substantial. But these are just starting points. We envision a collaboration that could redefine our place in the galaxy together." The discussions that followed were intense and probing, with both sides cautiously navigating the intricacies of interstellar diplomacy. As the meeting drew to a close, Reed knew that the real work had only just begun. This first contact was merely the opening gambit in what would become a complex dance of politics and power. Captain Marcus Reed followed the Viridian delegation through the corridors of their opulent council building, his senses alert. Each step took them deeper into the architectural marvel, an edifice as much grown as built, with living walls pulsating with soft light. As they entered a smaller, more intimate chamber designed for private discussions, Counselor Tessara gestured towards the seats. "Please, Captain Reed, make yourself comfortable. Let us continue our dialogue with more specific terms." Reed nodded, taking a seat. The chamber was circular, the center dominated by a transparent table that projected various holographic images of Earth and Viridian planets. "Thank you, Counselor. I believe we are at the point where frankness will serve us best." "Indeed," Tessara replied, her voice smooth as silk. "Viridia has watched Earth's rise with much interest. Your species has shown a remarkable knack for survival and aggression. Admirable traits for survival, but concerning for potential neighbors." Reed kept his expression neutral, reading between the lines of the diplomatic language. Concerning, Counselor, I would think resilience and a strong will would be seen as assets in allies. Assets, yes, in allies, Tessara conceded, her eyes narrowing slightly. But also threats in rivals. You see, Captain, while you speak of exchange and cooperation, Viridia must also consider its own security and prosperity. Reed leaned forward, his gaze steady. Are we to understand, then, that Viridia sees Earth as a rival rather than a potential ally? It depends entirely on the paths we choose today, Tessara said, her tone hinting at the stakes involved. Your expansion and resource consumption are expansive. Our projections suggest that should our spheres of influence overlap, conflict could become inevitable. Reed's mind raced, assessing his options. Counselor, it seems we're at an impasse of perception. We see our vigor as a basis for strong partnerships, yet you view it as a prelude to conflict. Perhaps there's a way to demonstrate our intentions. Tessara paused, then replied, Perhaps. Viridia has its eyes on a region of space that is rich in resources but lies uncomfortably close to your current trajectory of expansion. And if Earth were to redirect its efforts elsewhere? Reed proposed, seeing an opening. That could be seen as a gesture of goodwill, Tessara acknowledged, but it would require guarantees. Viridia's concerns aren't merely territorial. They are existential. Reed nodded slowly. I understand. And I believe Earth can provide assurances to Viridia's satisfaction. But such assurances work both ways, Counselor. Earth, too, needs to know that its goodwill won't be exploited. The room fell silent as both leaders considered the gravity of their negotiation. Finally, Tessara smiled thinly. Very well, Captain Reed. I believe this is the beginning of a very interesting conversation. Let us draft some terms that might satisfy both our peoples. As the meeting adjourned, Reed stood and offered his hand once again. Tessara took it, her grip firm. Captain, a word of advice, Tessara said quietly as they shook hands. Do not mistake our willingness to negotiate for weakness. Viridia has thrived for millennia. We would prefer peace, but we are prepared for other eventualities. Reed's eyes met hers with an unflinching resolve. And Earth does not give warnings lightly, Counselor. We seek peace, yes, but we will stand ready to protect our own by any means necessary. With that, Reed turned and exited the room, his mind racing with the weight of his mission. Earth had shown its hand, but so had Viridia. The chessboard was set, and the pieces were in motion. Back on Earth, Captain Marcus Reed briefed the United Nations Interstellar Committee with the outcomes of the preliminary negotiations. The large conference room, usually buzzing with multiple conversations, was eerily silent as representatives from around the world absorbed the gravity of the situation. The Viridians are clear in their intentions. They see potential conflict as inevitable given our expansion trajectories, Reed reported, his voice echoing slightly in the hushed room. We've managed to buy some time with promises of redirecting our expansion efforts, but it's a temporary solution. General Avery, the head of Earth's Space Defense Force, leaned forward, his brow furrowed. So, we prepare for war? Reed nodded. We prepare for all eventualities, but yes, war is a distinct possibility. We need to start ramping up our defenses, both in space and on our colonies. The room erupted into low murmurs as the reality set in. After a few moments, the Secretary General called for order. We need detailed plans, resource allocations, and potential allies. This isn't just about survival, it's about securing our future. Over the next few weeks, Earth's strategic resources were mobilized like never before. Shipyards that had been focused on exploration and trade ships pivoted to constructing warships. Research facilities that had been developing civilian technologies were repurposed to enhance Earth's military capabilities. Meanwhile, Reed established a series of clandestine meetings with potential allies among other spacefaring races. In a secure room aboard the orbital platform Liberty Station *, he met with representatives of the Arcturian Coalition and the Zephyr Pact. Your support in this could mean the difference between a short conflict and a prolonged war, Reed told the gathered delegates, his gaze steady and persuasive. An Arcturian delegate, a creature of flowing, translucent form, responded. The Viridians have long been a stabilizing force in this sector. To oppose them is no small risk. But neither is allowing one power to dominate or dictate the paths of others, Reed countered. Earth proposes a mutual defense pact. If Viridia moves against any one of us, it moves against us all. After hours of negotiation, tentative agreements were formed. The Arcturians and the Zephyrs, wary of Viridian dominance, agreed to a secret pact of support, supplying Earth with advanced weaponry and shields in exchange for trade rights and military protection. Back on Earth, training drills became a common sight. Citizens were enlisted into defense forces, and propaganda campaigns emphasized the need for unity and strength. General Avery supervised the transformation, ensuring that Earth's military would not only defend but also deter any Viridian aggression. In a secure command center, Reed reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Viridians were indeed increasing their military patrols in disputed regions, seemingly testing Earth's resolve. He issued orders for reconnaissance missions, seeking to gather as much information as possible. "We must know their capabilities, their strategies," he instructed his intelligence officers. "We can't go into this blind. Keep our satellites on high alert and make sure our cyber teams are ready to intercept any communications that could give us an edge." As Earth bolstered its defenses, the mood among the populace was a blend of determination and apprehension. Reed knew that the coming weeks would be crucial. Every ship built, every alliance forged, and every soldier trained could make the difference in the looming shadow of war. He ended the day with a broadcast to the people of Earth, his message clear and resolute. "We face a challenge like none before, but we do not face it alone or unprepared. We stand ready to defend our home, our way of life, and our place among the stars. Earth will remain free no matter the cost." The stillness of space around the outer colony of New Horizon was shattered by the sudden arrival of Viridian warships. Alarms blared across the colony as citizens scrambled to safety. Their peaceful morning turned into chaos. Captain Marcus Reed, aboard the Earth defense ship Vanguard, received the distress signal. "Captain, Viridian ships have breached the outer perimeter. They've launched an unprovoked attack," reported Lieutenant Harper, her voice tense over the communications link. Reed's jaw tightened. "Signal the fleet. Engage defensive maneuvers. No Viridian ship gets through." As the Vanguard raced toward New Horizon, Reed coordinated Earth's immediate response. Space around the colony transformed into a battleground with Earth ships maneuvering into combat positions. "Fire at will. Target their propulsion systems. Let's slow them down," Reed commanded, his eyes scanning the unfolding battle on the tactical display. Meanwhile, on New Horizon, the ground forces prepared their defenses. Anti-air turrets locked onto the incoming Viridian crafts, filling the sky with a barrage of firepower. Despite the suddenness of the attack, the colonists' response was disciplined and fierce, a testament to their rigorous training. Back in space, the Vanguard led a squadron into the heart of the Viridian formation. Reed's strategy was risky but clear. Cut off the head of the snake. The Viridian flagship, a massive vessel bristling with armaments, loomed ahead. "Deploying Special Tactics Unit. Prepare for close quarters engagement," Reed ordered. A team of specially trained soldiers launched in smaller, agile crafts designed for breaching enemy ships. As the battle raged, a smaller, stealthier ship from Earth's fleet maneuvered undetected towards the flagship. Inside, a team led by Commander Helen Miles prepared for their critical mission. "We're in position. Breaching now," Miles reported over the secure line. Explosives detonated, ripping open the hull of the Viridian flagship. Miles and her team stormed inside, engaging in fierce hand-to-hand combat with the Viridian crew. Their goal was clear: sabotage the ship's core, crippling the Viridian fleet's command structure. Meanwhile, Reed observed the progress of the battle, his ship dodging incoming fire. "Status on Miles' team?" "Core breach imminent," came the response. Seconds later, a bright explosion from within the flagship confirmed the mission's success. Disabled and drifting, the Viridian flagship was a significant blow to the enemy's morale. "Excellent work. All units, press the advantage. Drive them back," Reed commanded, his voice booming through the fleet. The tide of the battle turned as Viridian ships, now leaderless and disorganized, began to retreat. Earth's forces pursued, relentless. In the aftermath, Reed surveyed the damage to New Horizon from the Vanguard's command deck. While the colony had suffered, it had held. Its defenses, combined with the swift response of the fleet, had saved countless lives. "Lieutenant Harper, send a message to all colonies and Earth Command," Reed said, his tone resolute. "Tell them New Horizon stands, and Earth's resolve is only strengthened." As repairs began and the wounded were tended to, Reed's thoughts were with those who had fought and fallen. This battle was a victory, but the war was just beginning. The Viridians had underestimated humanity's readiness to defend its own. Now it was Earth's turn to take the fight to them. After the surprising victory at New Horizon, Captain Marcus Reed planned a daring mission that would take the war directly to the Viridians. The objective was clear: Infiltrate a strategic Viridian outpost, gather intelligence, and sabotage their supply lines. Such a move could significantly cripple the enemy's ability to wage a prolonged war. In the dim light of the briefing room aboard the Earth defense ship Vanguard, Reed outlined the mission to his hand-picked team. We have a narrow window to strike where they least expect us. This outpost is not just a military hub, it's their logistical backbone for this sector. Commander Helen Miles, fresh from her success on the Viridian flagship, nodded. We get in, gather all the intel we can, plant the charges, and get out before they know what hit them. Exactly, Reed affirmed. And there's more at stake here. We believe they're holding prisoners from other races they've conquered, potential allies. Freeing them could win us favorable support in the quadrant. The team comprised the best of Earth's special forces, along with 2 alien specialists familiar with Viridian technology. Stealth was paramount. Detection meant certain death. Hours later, cloaked by the darkness of space, the small, stealth-equipped shuttle approached the Viridian outpost. The structure loomed large against the backdrop of a desolate moon, its defenses scanning the void for threats. Disabling their external sensors, whispered Tara, one of the alien specialists, as her fingers danced over a portable hacking device. A moment later, the path was clear. We're good to go. Miles led the team through the vacuum of space, maneuvering towards a less guarded entry point identified in their pre-mission scouting. Cutting through the outer hatch with a silent laser, they slipped inside. The interior of the outpost was stark and angular, illuminated by a harsh, artificial light. The team moved silently, using the complex's labyrinthine corridors to their advantage. Reed, remaining aboard the shuttle to coordinate the extraction, guided them via comms. Turn left at the next junction. You should see the detention area 50 meters ahead, Reed directed, his voice a calm constant in their ears. As Miles and her team reached the detention area, they found several alien prisoners held in energy cells. Each prisoner's eyes lit up with a mix of hope and disbelief at the sight of their rescuers. Using a device provided by their alien specialists, the team quickly deactivated the cells. You're free. Follow us if you want to get out of here, Miles urged, helping up a frail-looking creature who nodded in profound gratitude. The freed prisoners, some limping or leaning on each other, added complexity to the escape plan. Meanwhile, another team member, Jack, placed explosive charges in critical locations around the outpost. Just as they began their retreat, an alarm blared. Somehow, they had been detected. Change of plans, Reed's voice crackled in their earpieces. Head to extraction point Delta. It's going to be tight. Pursued by Viridian security forces, the team raced through the corridors, their previous stealth replaced by urgent necessity. As they neared the extraction point, the outpost shook with the first of the controlled explosions, Jack's work disrupting the enemy's pursuit. Reaching the designated extraction point, the shuttle swooped in under heavy fire. Miles and her team, along with the rescued prisoners, boarded just as the outpost's secondary explosions began, throwing chaos into the enemy ranks. As the shuttle rocketed away from the moon, Reed finally allowed himself a brief smile. Well done, everyone. Let's get these folks to safety and debrief. We've just opened a whole new front in this war. Back on Earth, news of the daring raid and the coalition of newly freed alien races stirred a new wave of enthusiasm and support for the war effort. Earth was no longer fighting alone or merely for survival. They were now leaders in a growing resistance against Viridian dominance. The successful raid on the Viridian outpost had sparked a significant shift in the dynamics of the interstellar conflict. News of the freed prisoners and Earth's bold tactics spread quickly, boosting morale across human colonies and encouraging other oppressed races to resist Viridian control. Captain Marcus Reed found himself at the center of a burgeoning alliance, strategizing not just for Earth, but for a coalition of species. In the strategy room of the Earth defense ship Vanguard, Reed reviewed the latest intelligence reports with his senior officers and representatives from the new alien allies. The holographic map displayed Viridian territories and the various fronts where the Allied forces were now engaged. We've managed to disrupt their supply lines here and here, Reed pointed out, indicating the sectors on the map. These victories have been vital, but it's not enough to keep pushing them back. We need a decisive blow that will shift the balance of power in our favor. A Zephyr representative, a being composed of swirling gases contained within a suit, suggested, the Viridian Armory planet in the Tarsus system is their main supply depot for this quadrant. A strike there could cripple their fleet's ability to maintain pressure on our forces. Reed nodded thoughtfully. It's heavily fortified, but you're right. Taking out that depot would severely hamper their operations. It's risky, but the reward is worth the gamble. Plans were swiftly drawn up for a multi-pronged assault. Reed coordinated with the Arcturian and Zephyr fleets, combining their unique technologies and tactics with human ingenuity. The operation required precise execution. There was little room for error. Days later, the Allied fleet assembled at the edge of the Tarsus system, out of range of Viridian sensors. The tension among the crews was palpable as they prepared for what could be a turning point in the war. "Remember, timing is critical," Reed briefed his captains via the fleet-wide comm. "Each squad has specific targets. We cripple their defenses, then our bombers move in to finish the job. We do this right, we all get to see another day." As the fleet moved into position, stealth units took the lead, slipping past enemy sensors to disable the outer defense satellites. Once the path was clear, the main fleet surged forward, engaging Viridian defenders with a barrage of coordinated fire. On the vanguard, Reed oversaw the operation, issuing commands with calm precision. The initial phase went smoothly, but as they approached the Armory planet, a squadron of Viridian dreadnoughts emerged from behind one of the moons, guns blazing. "Evasive maneuvers. Focus fire on their lead ship," Reed commanded, his voice steady despite the sudden threat. The battle was fierce, with both sides suffering heavy losses. However, the unique strategies and technologies of the Allied forces began to overwhelm the Viridians. Reed's ship, the Vanguard, delivered the final blow to the Viridian flagship, sending it crashing into the planet's surface. With the Viridian defenses in disarray, the bombers made their run, unleashing a devastating payload that ignited the armory depots. The explosions were massive, lighting up the system and sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks. As the Allied fleet regrouped, cheers erupted across the comm channels. They had done more than win a battle. They had delivered a critical blow to Viridian capabilities, giving the Allied forces a much-needed advantage. "Today, we've shown the Viridians that they are not invincible," Reed addressed his crew and the Allied forces. "Let's use this victory as a stepping stone. We push forward, together." The aftermath of the battle saw a surge in uprisings across occupied systems. Reed's strategy of uniting different races under a common cause had transformed the war, positioning humanity and its allies not just as defenders, but as liberators. As they prepared for the next phase of the war, Reed knew that the hardest battles were yet to come, but now they faced them with renewed hope and strengthened resolve. The momentum gained from the victory at the Tarsus system had shifted the balance of power. The Allied forces, invigorated and more coordinated than ever under Captain Marcus Reed's leadership, were poised to launch the final assault on the Viridian homeworld, Viridia Prime. This planet was not just the political center of the Viridian Empire, but also its cultural heart, heavily fortified and protected by the remnants of the Viridian fleet. In the war room aboard the Earth defense ship Vanguard, Reed laid out the plan to his assembled commanders and Allied leaders. "This is where we end it," he said firmly, pointing to the holographic display of Viridia Prime. "A direct assault. We take out their command center and we cripple their ability to wage war." The plan was bold, requiring simultaneous strikes at multiple key targets, including energy grids and defense stations. "We'll need every ship, every soldier, and every bit of courage you have," Reed continued, his gaze sweeping over the room. "We've come this far together. Let's finish this the same way." As the Allied fleet approached Viridia Prime, they found the Viridian forces waiting, their battle lines drawn in a desperate attempt to protect their world. The space around the planet erupted into chaos as both fleets unleashed their full might. Reed, aboard the Vanguard, coordinated the attack, his calm voice a steady presence over the comm. "All units, maintain formation, focus on your targets. We break them here, today." On the surface of Viridia Prime, Special Forces teams, including one led by Commander Helen Miles, infiltrated key installations. Their mission was to disable the planetary shields, allowing the Allied bombers clear access to their targets. Miles and her team moved through the shadowed corridors of a shield generator station, dispatching Viridian guards with precise, silent strikes. "Charge set," one of her team members whispered, placing explosive devices at critical junctures. Back in space, the battle was intense. The Vanguard took heavy fire, its shields flickering under the onslaught. "Hold the line!" Reed shouted as another wave of Viridian fighters swooped in. The Allied ships pushed forward, their combined firepower slowly overwhelming the Viridian defenses. Suddenly, a surge of transmissions broke through the comm. "Shields are down! Repeat, planetary shields are down!" Miles's voice was triumphant amid the din of battle. Reed seized the moment. "All forces advance! Target their command centers! This ends now!" The bombers descended, dodging anti-aircraft fire as they lined up their runs. Explosions lit up the surface of Viridia Prime, each one a hammer blow against the Viridian war machine. In the final hours of the assault, Reed led a ground team to the Viridian Central Command. They encountered fierce resistance, but the determination of the Allied forces was unyielding. Room by room, they fought their way to the heart of the enemy's power. In the Central Command Room, Reed confronted the Viridian Supreme Commander, a towering figure in ornate armor. "Surrender," Reed demanded, his weapon trained on the commander. "End this, for the sake of your people." The Viridian commander looked around at the destruction wrought on his world, his expression one of defeat. "You have won, Earthman. I yield." As the news of the surrender spread, cheers and cries of relief echoed through the ranks of the Allied forces. The war was over. Reed stood amidst the ruins of the command center, weary but resolute. "This victory is not just for Earth," he addressed his team and the gathered Allied commanders. "This is a victory for all who yearn for freedom from oppression. Together, we have changed the course of history." As the dust settled on Viridia Prime, the terms of surrender were negotiated. The Viridian Empire would dismantle its military machine and pay reparations. Under Reed's leadership, a new era of peace and cooperation was forged, ensuring that the horrors of war would not be repeated. The dust of battle settled over Viridia Prime, revealing a landscape changed forever. In the aftermath of their hard-won victory, Captain Marcus Reed stood before the newly formed Interstellar Council, representing both Earth and its allies, as well as the defeated Viridian leaders. The vast chamber buzzed with the languages of many worlds, all united in their desire for a lasting peace. "As we stand here today, we are not conquerors, but liberators," Reed began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "We have fought not for the destruction of a people, but for the principles of freedom and self-determination. Now we face the task of building what must come after, a galaxy where such a war can never happen again." Reed introduced a series of treaties that outlined the restructuring of the Viridian government, ensuring it would be more representative and less imperialistic. Additionally, he proposed the creation of a multi-species peacekeeping force, tasked with maintaining stability and assisting in rebuilding efforts across affected systems. The assembly listened intently, many nodding in agreement, relieved by the hopeful path being laid before them. Among the attendees was Tessara, now a representative of her people, who had come to see the wisdom in Reed's vision of a cooperative future. "We have all suffered," Tessara spoke, her voice resonant in the hall. "It is time to put aside old grievances and work together for the common good. My people are ready to contribute to this new alliance." Over the following months, the peace treaties were ratified and reconstruction began. On Viridia Prime, once the heart of an empire, cities were rebuilt with both Viridian and alien architectures, symbolizing their new unity. Former soldiers from both sides worked side by side, repairing the damage and healing the scars of war. Captain Reed, now more a diplomat than a soldier, traveled between worlds, helping to mediate disputes and oversee the recovery efforts. His leadership was pivotal in maintaining the fragile peace, guiding the newly formed council in establishing policies that promoted equality and cooperation. In a significant move to solidify the lasting peace, Reed inaugurated the Galaxy Unity Games on Earth, a celebration of diverse cultures and newfound friendships. Athletes from every part of the galaxy competed not for dominance, but for mutual respect and joy. The games were opened with a moment of silence for all who had fallen in the war, remembered not as separate peoples, but as citizens of the galaxy. As the games concluded, Reed stood watching the celebrations, a soft smile on his face. Commander Helen Miles joined him, her eyes reflecting the fireworks lighting up the night sky. "You did it, Marcus," she said, giving him a friendly nudge. "You really did it." "It wasn't me alone, Helen. It was all of us together," Reed replied, his gaze turning to the crowd. "Look at them. Humans, Viridians, Arcturians, all celebrating as one. This is the real victory." As the night drew on, laughter and music filled the air, a testament to the resilience and spirit of the galaxy's myriad races. The challenges ahead were many, but for now, peace reigned, nurtured by the hope and unity that had been hard-fought, but ultimately achieved. Captain Marcus Reed looked to the stars, optimistic about the future, knowing that while the road ahead was long, it was paved with the promise of cooperation and peace. The galaxy had indeed been changed, not by the warning of destruction, but by the promise of unity.